I only have an hour and a half to cover all this other stuff. Do the best, yeah. Do the best part first. Well, this part will only take it. Because when I get to my comment is on the Drake portion, on what's new, whatever. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of their years where they made the major leap. They do it periodically. I mean, every year they've had, increases or whatever, but usually it's every few years they do a major leap, and this year I think, in my opinion, they did. It's a good one. So we'll get into that here in a second. Okay, we were just talking about this on page 68. At the end of that paragraph, the Affordable Care Premium Tax Credit. How many people are still waiting for refunds? I've had one we filed March 23rd. And if you read what the comment is there, is that IRS is not acknowledging that they're being held in suspense, and they instructed their employees not to inform taxpayers why their return is being suspended if you contact the IRS. Now, if you go down a little bit further, Nina Olson, who was the taxpayer advocate, said that's not acceptable. Now, what that means, I don't know. We still haven't heard anything on my guy, whatever. And all I'm saying is, you have all these other computers where you push the bloody button and it sends out all these notices. Why can't you send out a letter saying, we're waiting for information from the health care exchange? That's all you had to say. Client's going to go, okay. But they keep calling me, once a week, because all it says is I go to, where's my refund, and it says suspended, or it's being in process.
I read someplace that December 1st was the date IRS was starting the process.
Okay, she's saying that she read that December 1st was when they start processing. I hope so. I mean, because these people, their premium tax credit was only, $800-900 or whatever, and their total refund is like $5,000, and they're holding it. It's like, well, if you were waiting, why didn't you send them the $4,000, and then you wait on the other $1,000? But we're dealing with Infernal Revenue Service, so we won't comment. Okay, going on to the next sections. Basically, what I wanted you to be aware of here is IRS has a procedure on what you do if you have identity theft. How many people have had clients that you had to do that? And so the thing about it is that the only reason I put this in here is so you have a step-by-step procedure of what you got to do and the order it's got to be done in. Now, is it going to solve anything? Probably not, but you're covered. Like to say is that you got to call the IRS. You got to file, you got to file the 1439. You got to file a police report. You got to contact FTC. Contact the credit bureaus, etc. So all I'm trying to do is show you a step-by-step procedure of what you have to do if this occurs. Now, this can be done anytime you suspect that something is going on. If you get a reject because it says your Social Security number was already used, that's the potential. So go through the steps, because basically you're going to have to file it on paper anyway. So you might as well go through the steps to cover your client, cover yourself, make sure that we've done everything that we can. Yes?
Also, when they get the police report and everything, make a copy of it in case the IRS uses the original.
How often has the IRS ever lost forms? Let's not go there. Her comment was that when you get the police report, make a copy of it in case the IRS loses it, because they've never been known to lose forms. To believe that, I got a bridge for sale. Good for scrap. Okay, the next page, all we're talking about is how many people get their W-2, or not necessarily W-2s, because if you're doing with the computer, you don't even need the red forms anymore. Order your 1099s through IRS. They're free.
Yeah.
Why should you go down to Office Max and pay an arm and a leg for something that you can get for free? And the thing that is that you usually get them in a week or so. So, and I guess I just wanted to have the information there of where and you can do all that online. Next page is just some IRS hotlines and toll-free numbers. Again, ordering the forms. How many knew that there was a directory of federal tax preparers? Have you looked at yours? Well, again, this is just the website to let you know that it's there. So any client, potential client, whatever, can go and put in this zip code and get the information. And then we also put in here for the Small Business Health Option Program, or called the SHOP program, in case you need to know any information on that. Page 74. You need to read this and say what? Now, this was reported by somebody who works for ARP. And their comment is basically, if you read the session, that it's savings bonds are good for 30 years. After 30 years, they no longer accumulate interest. But according to this particular individual, there's tax consequences for not redeeming. So I would suggest that you go to that website and check it out, because it could have potential issues with clients. Yeah, all was right. Okay, we're going to move on to the next section. This is whatever section we're in, 5. These are programs that Drake had last year. They have them again this year. But too many people are not aware of the fact that these things exist. So, because lots of times when you go into Drake, you kind of have to go look at what they're saying their supplemental programs are, because unless you're looking for something specific, you may not know. Okay, the first one we want to talk about here is GruntWorks, and that basically is you scan the information in, and then you tell it. Do you want it to populate the return? Do you want Do you want to organize the return? Do you want to populate the return, or you want to do trades? If you do the populate return, or organize return, it gives you everything in order. Gives you the W-2s, tells you. So basically it's bookmarking everything. It's nice and pretty. I don't know that any of our people are going to do it, but it makes it look nice if you were trying to get extra money from your clients. The populate, basically you, down at the bottom, right in the middle there, it'll tell you all the forms that it can read and populate the return on. Do your W-2s, it can do your 1099s, your 1099-Gs, all those things that are listed there. And the other thing that can do is the trades. Now, I use this, but I put a base on it. If they have more than 5 W-2s, or if they are 1099s, any of the miscellaneous forms, or if they have more than 5 interest dividend statements, instead of having to input all that stuff, I'll run it through GruntWorks. Or if they have more than 10 stock trades, I'll put it in and let it populate. So you're not constantly putting all that garbage in, having to type it. It will put it in there for you. Now, then I go back and I verify that, yes, you didn't read anything wrong. It's 98+% accurate. So some of it is, it can, if you can't read it or whatever. But especially like for W-2s and interest and dividends, it's real helpful. Now I'll tell you, most of the time if you're doing a populate, you have to use one, it's like one token. And so you can see on the list there, it's, you have to buy these tokens. Now the thing that is I generally, at the start of the year, will order 250 tokens. They don't expire. So if you didn't use them up this year, use them next year. So you have to decide what baseline you want to deal with, but that's the baseline I use. Is 5 for all the forms and 10 for the trades.
What's the turnaround time?
Turnaround time is, depending on the time of year, the maximum I've ever seen is 24 hours. Usually you get the same day and it's like, oh, I've already gone on to something else, and so I'm not going to worry about it. I'll get back to it. It's something that you definitely need to look at. I mean, if you were doing, now of course I don't do any short form, but if you're doing, a fairly simple return and you wanted to, you could run that through and basically have it completed for you. Hardly cost you anything to get the return done. Save you lots of time. Yes? They have problems with K1s. And in fact, I don't even think you'll see it on the... Yeah, well, put that on your wish list. Okay, moving on. Some people have asked about portals. Drake has Secure File Pro, where they'll make a portal for you. And it actually gives you the prices of how many returns you're going to do, what it's going to cost you. So you need to do research on that. So basically, again, what we're trying to tell you here is this stuff is here. Now, part of the problem that Merle and I run into is we get ahead of the curve. And so by the time that DDM came out, we'd already been scanning for 5 years. And when the portals came out, we already had portals for 3 or 4 years. So I'm not going to change, but it is available to you if you're not using it currently.
Can they load from their DDM onto their portal?
Yes. One of the things you can do is actually when you go to the setup print, you can say DDM and portal. Way my particular system is right now is that we've got share file going into the DDM and grabbing the information that has not already been updated, and they update the portal. Corinne. Somebody asked a question, sorry.
I was just wondering with the DDM, were you going to cover the difference between working cabinet and archive?
The question she's having is on the DDM, there's 2 versions. One is working capital, one is archive. Yes, we will talk about that. Okay, the next thing we have here is electronic signatures. And one of the things that Drake is talking about is giving you a list of the various software, or not software, the various boxes that you use to sign. In fact, I think there was like 3 of them that they are recommending. We went with the middle one because the glass was heavier. You don't have one of these beating on the glass and breaking it, so. Drake Zero. This is basically what we're talking about is the online tax preparation. So you can either do if you have a multiple site license or pay as you go. And again, so this is one of those cloud deals. So if you're doing pay as you go, that's a good option. And again, just something that they have. Drake Hosted. And this is one where it'll run your program in the cloud. And as software is installed for you, backups are automatic, and your data is always secure. Again, something that you need to look at if that is something that, say what, I'm sorry? And then we have the Drake hosted websites, where they're giving you a list of what it's gonna cost you if they host the website. And my site is hosted through Microsoft, was it Azure or something like that, is where mine is hosted. Drake also has what is called eCollect, which covers your fee. If you want to have your fees taken out of the refunds of your clients, if you use eCollect, they'll do that for you. And then they can either do a direct deposit, paper check, or prepaid card for the remainder. So if collecting your money is an issue, you may want to consider the eCollect. Anyone using Protection Plus? It's basically an audit assistance that for $44.95, which is a flat fee, which is added to the cost of the return. It covers the last 3 years, and it's good for helping with denied tax credits, audits, debt tax relief, and help with rejected ITINs. It's available there. I don't know of anybody that's used it. Now, here's this ePay merchant card processing. So if you don't want to use the credit card processing that's out there, or you don't want to use the Square or something like that, you can set up this through Drake for the ePay merchant card processing. And of course, we've had for a number of years the 7216 letters. And then the last thing is Drake has a massive training department. They have stuff for everything. And so I just put it in here to give you some examples of what they have for tutorials. So if you have new people in your office or whatever, and they have a question on a particular area, send them there. Okay. Moving on. And we're on page 92. Yeah.
Before we get into updates, what about office tools, like how people, if you got more than one person in office, what kind of things do they use to keep track of work baskets and things like that? Have you ever discussed that or asked people?
Well, the best thing is you talk to Nikki and Pam, because they're using office tools.
I already did, but that was so expensive. I was just wondering if there's other alternatives. We tried Adam and we didn't like it, and so we went to the office tools. But I don't know of anything else that does what it does.
No, I've looked at,
Users and it's like, and then plus you get a life support package, which you can, some of your users, you can have them at part-time. That's what we have, yeah. So we only have 2 users and then 2 seasonal.
so talk to them about that. I haven't found anything that that's the best, but it's also really expensive. Okay, on page 92. Now, or whatever. This page. The one here that's showing the 1098. Now, I'm hoping that you're not going to see any of these this year on the 1098. But banks are kind of peculiar at times, and they jump ahead and do some of this stuff. And you get one of these and you go, what? And so this is the 1098 that's for next year. And so basically it's now going to be reporting the amount of the outstanding balance at the beginning of the calendar year, the date the mortgage was originated, and the address of the property securing the mortgage. Now, lots of times what happens is you get the 1098 and then you get all this information down below on some. And some you don't have a clue what's going on. You hope that you can take that information. So starting in 16, this is what you're going to see for the 1098s. I just wanted to make sure that you, if I don't anticipate any of these showing up, but I've been wrong on guessing like that before too. So now, new for 2015 is there may be a verification code on the W-2. And it's going to be a code, and they need to have you enter this code. A lot of the payroll companies are going to be doing this. And I can't, Megan was supposed to tell me about ADP. She was checking on that. But a number of them are going to be doing this verification code, which the IRS is asking for. So you may run into that. Okay, moving on. Now, hopefully, everybody got the what's new for 2015. And I'm going to jump to the tax return. If you have anyone who double checks returns, this is actually, they're calling it double check, but actually is a tick, tie, and calculate from C Paperless. And what it amounts to is that you have to go into what we call up at the top here, it says you got your basic view, which just shows the tax return, or you got the enhanced view. Where do we go here? There, enhanced view. Okay, so what happens is that if you go down and say, I want the 1040, and I'm checking returns. So you say, well, I check the name, I put a check mark by there, left click. I check their address, well, wherever it is, left click. Social security numbers, etc. And so anywhere down here you can, verify. Now, one of the things that we suggest is that you can also put flags on here. If you double click it, it'll put a flag on there. Now, this is a calculated, so it shouldn't be a problem, but if you have a problem on any one of these lines, or you can go and right click and go and say, add a note to there. And basically you could say, well, they normally had IRA distributions. Well, I don't see anything on here, so you could just type in IRA distributions. So so what'll happen is that when you get out of that,
Can you just make a note or XXX there and see where it shows on the weekend?
you want me to add a note?
Right there, yeah, just XXX something out of there, you go, put it in.
So it puts a note there. And so when you go and click back on it, should bring up the note. Yeah, I know. Probably have to re-click on the display. And edit note, whatever. So there's the deal. So, and the thing about it is that when you go and do your setup, on the bottom, when we go to the setup options, there's a box in the EF screen that says, if you check it, it says disallow EF selection if double check review flag exists. So so if you check that box, this return can't be filed until you go back and take it off. And so you saw when I did this right click here, there's a number of options. of things that you can, you can do. Add note, you want to look at it, the tutorial on that, whatever.
Then you want to check all the boxes at one time, or you have to do manually one at a time?
Well, if you're checking and return, you're not checking all the boxes at one time. You're doing it as you're checking the return, right?
I think you got, if you got more than one flag on the return, you got to get rid of each flag, so.
You're going to have to get rid of each flag. If a bunch of flags on there, it's like you're having problems.
You can click them all and you can clear them all at the same time.
Yeah.
Right there.
But the point is that why would you click them all if you didn't verify?
Well, so verify that you can clear all at one time.
So again, we just want to remind you to make sure that you check that box at the bottom. Now I'm going to jump ahead here to one of the other things they have is what they call look back. This is new. So if you're in the return, and I go over here, doesn't make a difference where I go. You hit F11. It says, this is everything that they used last year. These are all the boxes that they used last year. So now you best be looking at, medical expenses, whatever, union dues, real estate, etc. So, oh, that's great. If I hit it again, of course, it goes away. Now, the thing that is that if I hit F11, that shows up in every form that we had entries on. So it says, well, you had entries here, so you need to be looking at that.
You enter stuff on top of that color here.
Yes, as soon as I enter something here, it still keeps it there, but I now have the deal there. Now, the other thing that they've done is you say, well, especially this is always the issue when you got charitable contributions. Well, let's not go there. Okay, real estate taxes. What did I have last year? You hit F12, and it'll show you what the information that was entered on those lines last year. Now, you can't change it because it's just bringing it forward. But it's telling you that if someone says, well, what did I pay for union dues last year? Well, it was $635. Yeah, they went up. So, it's, because you always have that question, what did I do last year? And so what they're trying to get at is a lot of people have last year's return on the other screen, last year's input on the other screen. The problem that you have with that is if you inadvertently get on the wrong screen and change something, you no longer have what you had. So if you're going to have the other screen up, it better be PDF.
Can you cut and paste that?
So anyway, so their comment is too many people put last year's return up there, last year's program. I'm saying, no, 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 no. You can put a PDF up there so you can see the information, but don't be having the information there. Billy?
Electronic filing lock return
Yeah, but if you bring open the prior year return, it asks you or tells you that it's already been filed. Do you still want to go on? And you say yes, because I'm looking at Schedule A. I can bring that return up, and I can change it. No, no. It locks it after it's electronically filed, but if you go into the return, it's going to say this has already been filed. Do you still want to go into it? And you have to answer yes. So again, now if I put it up on the left screen, that's last year's return. So if I inadvertently am on the wrong screen, and I know what would happen because you didn't change the colors, which is one of the things you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go change last year's colors, so you know you're on the wrong screen. Okay, well, we got one person who does that. But anyway, so if you have a PDF up there, that's not a problem, but if for some reason you still need to know what they did last year, F12 brings it up. And again, so as soon as you take F12, it goes away. So if you have F12 up there, you can't change any of these numbers. That's from last year.
When you do that, does it only bring up the numbers from last year on the form that you have exposed there?
Yes. It only brings, he wants to know, does it bring up only the information on this? If I go to,
Let's say you go out of that, then are they deleted or do they stay there?
no, because well, they stay there because what happens is if I go over here to Social Security, well, I guess I didn't ask, let's see what happens if I go back. It goes away, I guess.
Okay, just curious, I just wanted to.
Yep.
Do you have to keep track of whether they're there or not?
No, so it's gone away once you get out of the screen.
You can't do any data entry at all when you're in
If it's in F12, you can't do any data entry. F11, when you have it here, it's yes. Oh, go ahead.
Can you have some of the information in there and then do an F12? And not give them what you put in for this?
I think what you're saying here, Merle, whoops. Yeah, let me do it down here.
I got everything in but you need it. Everything on the check.
Okay, so I've got that in there. Now if I hit F12, F12 says, what did you have last year? So that's all the function of 12 is. What did you have last year?
So if you exit and come back in,
Still there with whatever.
Yeah, if I get out of here and then, or exit, this is still here. But it's still saying, this is the forms I used, or the lines I used last year. As soon as I hit F11, it's gone. It's just to let you know that if you have somebody that had itemized deductions and you know that, well, you need to go to, they had it last year, well, how come you don't have it this year? That's all it's to tell you.
And that works on Schedule C, D, all of them.
Yeah, it works on, basically, you can do that on all the forms. I think there has a spot here, Judy, they say all the federal forms, they're still working on state, and then it also works on corporate. So it should save time, you know, especially if you don't have the, you know, again, as far as I'm concerned, why should you have last year's return, tax return, input forms on the left screen? Never happened.
Just for fun, where is that information? Is it accessing last year's program, or is it in resident in this program?
It's in resident, because actually if you go into Drake and go look, they have it all by last digit of the Social Security number. It's actually the FT folder if you want to actually go in and find it. Yeah, for the previous year. So yeah, it's saved there. So if you change computers, yeah, is it going to be there?
One thing I want to mention too, when we did this webinar the other day, they said you can also change those colors if you don't like.
Yes, you can change any of these colors. Because, you know, if you guys remember Tippy Canoe, Tyler, he couldn't see, what color can he see? Red and green, he couldn't see. So they had to change the program because he couldn't see those colors. So, yeah, you can change these colors to anything you want. That just happens to be what they picked or whatever. Now, one of the other things that they've added is called link back, which allows you, again, if you're in the, yeah, actually, I don't know what page it is. Page 3 on the supplement. So again, if you are in the enhanced view, if you go and click, oh, let me get to the here. If you go and click on a line, Okay. Yeah, okay, sorry. Well, wait a minute. Did I right click? Verify entry. No. Why am I not double click on the item in the list to open? In the box? Is it right click?
Review input screens up on the top.
Aha. Okay. You got to know what, you have to be able to read. So anyway, if you go to, again, I went to the, happened to be the W-2 here. It'll show you where all this information came from. How did I get this number here? So if I have a 1099 that had, especially if you're down on the withholding screen, or, I have dependent care benefit that went in there. I can see that, and then, because here it's showing the W-2. I can just click on it and say, well, that's where it came from. But again, it has to be in the enhanced mode. Come on, cooperate. And so then you're seeing that it's saying that the wages for the current year was 12,000, and then you can see all the other things that are going to be happening on the return. And that's what they call link backs. It links back to where that information came from. So if you have, especially like if you have 13,000 there, and you say, wait a minute, W-2 is only 12. Well, then you look and say, well, according to the code here, it says DCB. So then I can go on here to dependent care benefits and figure out why it added to that. So basically it's just say, well, I don't understand how you came up with these numbers. Now, it's not going to do it on a calculated number. It's not going to do it on line, whatever that line is. It's only going to be stuff that you inputted. So I think that's going to help a lot, because how many times, especially like say you get on a Schedule C and it's like, where did it come from? So now you can go and find out where it came from. And so basically it's all the main forms on the federal 1040, the 1041, the 1120, 1120S, and 1065. On the 1040, it's Schedules A through F. And it says individual resident, non-residents, all state 1040 packages. And of course, we don't have the state, so can't tell it. Corinne.
So, one that comes up sometimes that it's like, where did it get all this, is on the Schedule A, the state taxes. Where all is it pulling this from?
That's what this is going to tell you.
And so that way you can bring that up and that'll give us the whole list of, it was last year's status two, and the fourth quarter that we put in January, and the
Yep.
fourth quarter this year that was put in December, and it'll list all that stuff.
So she has a very good point, is that the state income taxes, is that you look at that and it's like, where did that number come from? I know some of it came from the W-2, but especially if you did a fourth quarter estimate that was in January, or you paid for a prior year that you inputted, and, et cetera. So
I know there's a print option that we had before, where you can print that schedule out, where all that number came from.
okay, he's commented that you can print out that particular, I'm not aware of that.
There is a A1 activity schedule over, shows all the activities.
So this would save you having to print it out. Okay, some of the other things that they've done with this on the return, or not necessarily on the return, is that when you get in the program, it's now telling you down in this alert section is anything going on that you need to be aware of. Status update on the systems, important alerts, other notification. Because here they're talking about bank enrollment is live. South Carolina flood victims, tax deadline extender, etc. So that's down here in this alert section.
That's where you normally get your notice if you use enough to that.
Yep. Now, one is, well, that's actually here under, well, whatever. It gives you that red screen. That's one of the things that they've changed, which I always got upset about because it said, you know, you need updates. Well, you go and click on it, then you had to hit install, which meant then it went and got it, and then you had to hit exit when it was done. And you had to be watching the screen. They don't do that anymore. As soon as it says you got updates, you just say get the updates. It goes and loads it, and then when it's done, it comes back to, again, you still have to put in your login information, but the point is that you're not waiting all these extra steps to get the stupid thing loaded. So they now also have a new client organizer that you can generate for clients without a return already in Drake. Yeah, the organizer is printed with all fields empty so the taxpayer can fill it in, and because most of our organizers are printed from last year's data. Pardon? You have to go under organizers. No. Yeah, right click. Okay, they've added on to letters where you now can have headers, footers, and logos. So if you have a logo for yourself and you want to import it, you can do that, you know, very easy. Or on the printing, you now can print a summary bill. And so that you see that on page 6 of our return here. One of the problems we've always had is if you're using the Drake1040.com for your email, is like you had to remember to go back in there to get any emails. Now you can go and put in your email address, and so it'll send it to your email address, not to, even though it says Drake1040.com, whatever, it automatically is going to forward it to your email. So you have to go in there and say, where do I want it to go?
You tell them that the time you renew your subscription,
No, you'll go in and do the email setup.
when you do the, okay, all right.
Okay, and the document manager, Corinne, or no, it wasn't Corinne, it was somebody else. Somebody at that table. You have the option, again, of archived or whatever the other one is. Working, yes. Okay, so what's happening here is if you're doing the archived, it creates a tree for you, which basically means their name, and it's always under the letter of their last name, and then it puts it in last name, first name, and the last four of their social security number, and then it creates tax 2015, and then you can put any information in there that you wish. Generally what I will do is I will put in the tax return, all their documents that they sent me. I'll also put in their engagement letter when I get it back from them, the 8879 when I get it back from them. So it's all in one spot. I am printing out the 8879 and putting it in the 3-week notebook. So even though I had them sign it while they were sitting there, now I still have to print it because I have to put it in the stupid notebook, which goes in the file cabinet. Yeah.
One thing I ran to last year, great document manager, I've been using the archive, and then there's a recommendation to use the working file cabinet. So, beginning of the year, I switched to the working file cabinet, and I found
Okay, so what John is saying is that whatever you've been using in the past, don't change. So if you've been using the archive, which I found out is the best, as far as I'm concerned, stay with the archived. If you go and change, who knows what's going to happen.
I was at Warren Drake's class in Omaha beginning of November, and we spent a considerable amount of time on this because there were people who didn't understand the difference. The working cabinet, it's only within the Drake software program the year you're in. Okay, so you have to have that on your computer to use it. The archive cabinet takes everything from every year. Now, if you're going to switch, you have to then send everything from each of your versions into the archive cabinet.
Right.
So it kind of becomes a pain. Now, Warren Drake, he also has his own small practice, and he said, I'm gonna tell you right out front, this is what we all use at corporate. He said, honestly, if we could, we'd get rid of the working cabinet, but he said too many people use it.
Yeah. So basically, the short version is that working capital, or the working cabinet, got it, is primarily for the current year. If you're going to be keeping multiple years, then you better be using the archived. And the archived works best if you're using the DDM.
Well, what's the difference between the archive and the DDM?
Archived is on a separate spot.
Okay, so DDM is like my file.
Yes. DDM is like your file cabinet. So basically, if you're doing the archived, it's put in, or the working cabinet, it's all putting it in that particular FT folder in that particular year, 2015. So basically, if you want to get to the, using any of this stuff with the DDM, you can use the working recommend archive.
When you send it to DDM, does it automatically goes to archive?
No, you have to tell it what you want it to go to. But as soon as you tell it that I'm going to print, the default on printing is Drake PDF. And that's going to send it to the DDM.
The DDM can be either working or archived.
That is correct. We would not recommend that you be using the working.
When it first came out, it was archived. But people didn't realize that when they did backups, they weren't backing up the DDM because it wasn't within the Drake program. So year 2 or 3, I don't remember which, after they had come out with the DDM, they gave you this option of working, so that when you did a backup of Drake, you backed up your DDM all in one step. If you're using the archive and you back up Drake, you're not backing up your DDM. You're only backing up your data during your Drake program.
That is correct.
So you do your DDM and back that up separately. You gotta do 2 backups if you wanna back up everything.
Well, my comment on that is anyone who can't figure out how to do a backup and back up everything that's on your computer other than the programs don't get backed up, and have that done on a periodic basis, like on a daily or more basis, shouldn't be in the business.
But the advantage of backing up to Drake is you have the encryption if you weren't encrypting your drive. And that's why they brought it in, and now they more or less
Are stuck with it. So basically use the archived, and then how many have a separate external hard drive plugged into your laptop or to your computer right now? Super. How often do you change it? Okay, you alternate, good. So as long as you are swapping, putting it in your pocket and getting it out of the building, super. So that's an extra level of redundancy, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go with the PGP, because it will also encrypt that external hard drive. And so you need to be doing that. But then you also need to be looking at, I need to put it someplace on the cloud somewhere. Because too many people will plug that sucker in And so the computer gets stolen, and it's like, oh, my backup was there too. Didn't do much good, but can never do too many backups. Again, one of the problems we had when we were doing the earned income credit is that we always had to, let's see, this is page, I'm on page 10 here. You had to enter the kids in order. Youngest first, I think it was. Yeah, youngest first. Now they don't care. And so they've given you basically a lookup box or look down box, or whatever terminology you want to use, the arrow, the upside down triangle, to be able to find the kids and put it in, especially if you're doing that information. And so then we have this spot here that we're, the next page in 11, we're talking about here where they're giving the notes on the calculation of the earned income credit, why you may not have received the earned income credit. So you say, oops, forgot to do this, forgot to check that box. One of the things that Drake has added is a FAFSA sheet, worksheet. So the thing that is that if, you always have clients say, well, I need to get my return done so I can get the information from so I can do the FAFSA form. So now what happens is that you can actually do this worksheet and all the information will be populated that they need for the form. The thing that you have to remember is when you're inputting it, you have to check, is this the parents or is this the dependent? And the thing about it is that the reason people say, well, why aren't you filling in the FAFSA form? By law, they can't. That's by statute. So, but they can do the worksheet, which will save a lot of time and effort. They've changed the estimated tax form, the ES screen. Drake is now going to produce vouchers automatically if the estimated payments should be made, even with no entries made on the ES screen. Okay, so now the thing about it is that they're saying if you have a missed payment, it'll add it to the next one. It doesn't spread it out over the remaining three. It just adds it to the next one. Now, the thing about it is that okay, I need estimates in order to satisfy the 2210 requirement, but they're going to have a good year and we need to up it by X number of dollars. So they have an extra screen here where you can put in plus the number of dollars that you think it's going to be, and it'll spread it out over the 4 estimates automatically. So if you know that you have to go up by $10,000, just put in plus 10,000 and it'll already calculate for the 4 quarters. So you can go up or down. There's a new tab on the screen. Go back. It's called Other Forms. So this is a new tab. We always had Other Forms 1, but now we have Other Forms 2. And so this is where they have the W-4, the power of attorney, etc. This is where the FAFSA worksheet is. But they also have what is called Source Document Guide. So if you click on that, it's going to bring up all the help screens. So where do I put the 1099Q? Where do I put the 1099C? It'll tell you where to go, what to do. Where do I enter the 1099A? And so this is all under this Source Document Guide. So, I mean, how many times have we had questions on the 1099Q? What do I do with that? Oh, yeah, once you do it once, you say. So then they also have added this information return for foreign corporations that you can go in and put that information in. So again, if you go to the source document guide, it'll take you right to okay, and 1099K. So where do I enter it on the Schedule C, Schedule E, etc. There's a long-term care screen now. And I think this is under the, here, long-term premiums. And so what you can do is you can put the information in here for taxpayer, spouse, and if there's anyone else that you're doing the payments for. You do not need to enter this on Schedule A and have to do the reduction based on age.
Will that populate over to Minnesota's?
I would say no, because usually in Minnesota you had to bring that over anyway. So this is basically going to save you time on the Schedule A, having to go and check, and it's called long-term care under the if you go under the health care, long-term care premiums. There's now a new 1099 for patronage dividends. So you can enter that information directly as it comes in from the screen or from the form, and then you can tell it what form does it go on to. Is it going to go on the F, the 4835, etc.? Or not at all? Well, I mean, better to enter it and say that's not taxable then. They've also created a 1099 OID. So you can put the information directly from that 1099 OID on the form, and that will carry to the interest screen. We've already talked about the fact that on page 1, you have a spot here that says answer no to Schedule B. But then if you have to answer those questions, you go and click to the left of that box for foreign accounts. And then that's where you put in the information for the various countries, etc. And then they do have the deal for the FBAR, and they're giving you explanation. 1099G has been expanded. Off of the B? Yep. Yep, right here. Foreign accounts. So you're either going to check this one, or you're going to click this one.
And that takes you right there.
The 1099G. Hello. Now has a, where did they put it? The lookup box for. What form does this go on? Is it going to go on the 1040, the Schedule C, the Schedule F, or the 4835? You know about more farms on unemployment compensation than I would. I'm looking at you. Okay, one of the problems we've always had is that you get a K-1 that has Form 56 required. And before you had to do all these calculations or whatever, trying to figure it out, and most of the time it said, can't do it. So now there's a Form 56. But just to reiterate, you have to put the information on the K-1, and you must do the Form 56, and that must be filed separately. Cannot be filed with the 1040 return. American Opportunity Credit is now going to keep track of the number of years an individual has taken the Opportunity Credit. About time. Why do I have to go back and look for all those years? They also have a Roth basis, so that they will generate the Roth basis worksheet. On the other corporate forms, if you have a short year, you always had to enter that it was a short year. Now you just put the information on the year screen. Most of this other stuff that you can read yourself, they've added for entity returns, 1120 S's 65 and a 1041, an EF acknowledgement page. Never had that before. All you got, I mean, like, on the individual, you could send out, this has been accepted, and Drake would do that automatically for you if you wanted to. Now you can actually print out an acknowledgement for the entity returns. It'll fill in the federal, and then when you get the state acknowledgement back, it'll fill that in. So if you want to keep that or send that to the client that it has been acknowledged, this is the date, there's now an EF acknowledgement screen. The Schedule K now has a tab screen on it so that you can get to the income deductions, credits, etc. Because before, you remember, we had to go on to the K1s and do the allocations ourselves. Now you're going to put it on one screen. And then you still do have the K1 overrides, but most of the stuff is going to be coming from the Schedule K, so the K1 override screen is much smaller. If you have to do special allocations on the 1065, that's available. And of course, you can read on the individual other packages. They also included for this year the state forms for other states, or the newest state forms, and Minnesota additional charge for underpayment of estimated tax for trusts, partnerships, and S corps. That's the only add that for Minnesota. And you can see what has been added for the other states. Starting November 1st of 2015, you have a marketplace application which will include the new tax filing related questions. It's called a test reconciliation. So if you have to have anybody who was enrolled in 2014 and they're going to be enrolled, or you have to reconcile the premium tax credit, and then there is a failure to reconcile question if you don't do that. So you're going to have to do one or the other. Yeah, 97. 98 is kind of a repeat, but there is a prepare representation down at the bottom, which lets you to fill in some of the information if you happen to be searching for tax preparers. And again, they're showing the 14039, the identity theft affidavit. And some of the people, and this is actually one of the ways we could get rid of a lot of identity theft, if the IRS would issue PIN numbers to everybody. But that's not happening. But they are issuing to some people who were subject to the theft. And so there is a screen that you have to, it's on the PIN screen, where you have to put in the PIN that was issued by the IRS in order to complete the return. And if they're supposed to have it, you best have it there, otherwise it's going to bounce. Questions?
I've heard now things are starting to steal PIN numbers now.
They're starting to steal PTIN numbers. number of returns got filed with P10 numbers. That's why I'm recommending everyone in this room send a email to Drake, feedback@drake.com, mentioning that we want the P10s, EFINs, and Social Security numbers redacted on printouts that are not going to IRS or the state of Minnesota. Because right now, if you mail it, all that stuff is on there. And I don't know where they're stealing the P10 numbers from. Probably from returns, and then they're filing returns with your P10 number on there, and you're going to have to be dancing.
Last year, when I was fighting, I had a parent who takes care of a disabled child.
Mm-hmm.
So he's paid for that. And that income is not taxable by IRS. I have no way of entering it so that it's not taxable. And I tried to get Drake to help me, and they wouldn't.
What was taxable to the dependent?
I mean, the parent took care of a disabled
He's
child,
getting money
and
from-
he was paid.
Oh.
Paid for it, and that money is not taxable.
Yes. Okay, what he's talking about is someone's to take care, a parent is taking care of a disabled child. If you go on to the front of the 1040, oops, not 1040, I'm sorry, under, I think it's got to be under income. I suppose they moved it now. Here, line 21, W-2 income excluded per notice 2014-7. That's where you put it in. You just go on that line and put the number in. And it's automatically subtracted out. And it puts in section 2014-7. You have to include it on line 7 because they included it in income. And then you have to put it here on line 21, and it'll pick up that information and subtract it out, and it'll put on line 21, that is section 214-7. Yeah, you got to. Unfortunately, I can't answer that. Everything I've run into has been dependent child. I shouldn't say that. It's not a dependent child. It was somebody who was disabled, and they weren't even a dependent. So it has to be somebody that you're caring for in your home that's disabled. That's what 2014-7 says.
Has anybody been successful about getting Social Security?
Getting what?
Social Security or Medicare back on those W-2s that you're taking it off on. As I understand, they don't get Social Security benefit from it.
The only thing that they're going to get reduction on is the income. Can't do anything on Social Security or Medicare.
Okay, because at least what I had read on something on the common site, that they're not gonna get Social Security quarters for that income, get that money.
That's a Social Security issue. It's not a tax issue. Yeah. You'd have to contact Social Security on that. I mean, the main thing I was concerned with is that it's like, I want to get your money back. From what?
One in there, box one.
Yeah. Questions?
I think the F bar is now they have changed the dates from June.
The F bar is still due June as far as I'm aware, and it has to be electronically filed. It's
Changed to April 15.
that was that highway tax bill or some bloody thing. Okay, April 15th. But it still has to be electronically filed, and that goes to Detroit. April 15th, and that was due to the highway tax bill. The F-bar. Yeah, it was in one of those hidden bills. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll be here for a while and I can answer, so. Be sure and fill out that evaluation. Make sure that we want to continue doing this or whatever, so. Yeah, anybody who's got credit cards, go back and see Nikki again. We know where you live. Even though it's not on your signature form.
If you go to insurance and